Thank you for joining us for the 44th sitting of the 2009 to 2013 session of the Tobago House of Assembly. I am Avian Parks. Moving the motion this week was Assemblyman Wally Kwaku. The motion dealt with the number of mega projects undertaken by the Executive Council over the last 11 years.
There are a number of questionable projects and dealings which need investigation. And there is a pattern which suggests recklessness and lack of accountability for the spending of public funds. You know, Madam Presiding Officer, it was Professor Off, which we know quite a lot of. He said, it should be assumed that the construction industry is vulnerable to potential corruption. And steps should, accordingly, be taken to avoid actual corruption, following, of course, established guidelines and recommended practices laid down by Transparency International and its affiliates. So, Professor Off is saying that it should be assumed that the construction industry is vulnerable to potential corruption, and steps should be, accordingly, be taken to avoid actual corruption. Madam Presiding Officer, mistakes were made, and of course, I'm certain that there would have been some few success stories. Today, let us examine some of these mistakes that were made, and the men and women to accept the fact that they happened and to put measures in place so that if not totally eradicating the disease, to reduce these incidents. Yes, we will not blame others, but we must today be men and women enough to accept the position we have found ourselves and move on. Madam Presiding Officer, it is believed that accurate diagnosis of a disease is the first step towards a cure. Accurate diagnosis of the disease is the first step towards a cure. And Madam Presiding Officer, a forensic audit into the projects, all the projects mentioned, would certainly afford us accurate diagnosis. And therefore, we will know where the disease, be it lack of accountability, be it reckless spending, just to name two for the time being, how can we determine, Madam Presiding Officer, recklessness in spending? We have seen it, and we are saying, how do we prescribe? We are saying that we must first diagnose, and the best method that I have seen so far is to have a forensic audit into these projects so that we can diagnose the disease, where it lies, and then we can certainly prescribe and eventually look forward to a cure. Madam Presiding Officer, note, if a person is not infected with the disease mentioned, we have no problem. For it is said that the wicked fleeth when no man pursueth, but the righteous is as bold as a lion. Accurate diagnosis of the disease and the right prescription will lead to the cure of nepotism, corruption, bribery, extortion, conflict of interest, financial statement fraud, asset misappropriation. These are just a very few of the kind of disease that we have seen over the last 11 years. And today, as we look at this motion, the intention is to put a stop to these things so that Tobago can grow, so that the people of Tobago can become healthy and wealthy. It's about preparing our people, Madam Presiding Officer, for the additional responsibility to come. We know that, and we expect, so that I have not yet seen the move to prepare our people. Let us therefore put a stop to that which is happening, the wastage. Put a stop to all the things that are happening in the construction industry and in the financial industry, here in the Tobago House of Assembly, let us have a forensic audit, look at these things, see where the shortcomings are, put the right medication in place, put the right things in place, so that when the new responsibilities come, we would be quite prepared. So it's a matter, therefore, Madam Presiding Officer, of preparing our people for additional responsibility, that which we expect very soon. Rest assured, Madam Presiding Officer, we will certainly shower all with praises for good work done, if we can find any. And we will do that on some other occasion. Today's occasion is to look at the weaknesses that we can find, which exist. We want to look at the disease, and we want to prescribe some kind of medication so that we can have a cure. Madam Presiding Officer, how we vote on this motion in its present construct will determine our acceptance of the past and a commitment to putting Tobago first. As together we aspire, certainly together we will achieve. And before anyone attempt to amend this motion, as is usually done, I would like him or her to ask a couple questions, ask himself a couple questions. The first question is, am I saying, that's a question, once you intend to amend this motion, madam, anyone attempt to amend the motion, these are the questions I would like such person to ask. Am I saying there is no need for a forensic audit? Am I saying that everything is okay? What benefit would the amendment bring to the people of Tobago, especially the young people? Or is it that when I make such amendment, am I trying to protect someone or something? These are questions that must be asked if there is any attempt to amend this motion, Madam Presiding Officer.
Assemblyman Hilton Sandy argued that Assemblyman Kwaku had no proper evidence to support his argument, nor did he understand some of the terms used in his motion.
You mentioned and you want forensic. And you explained to me what forensic is and what we should expect and what we should do and so on and so forth. And you said about the dispute, and I asked you, what is the dispute? You said a query. What is the query? Who are we querying? The problem. What is the problem with the projects? You said bribe. Who got the bribe? Because if we have to go to the forensic, as you mentioned, just with these few things you mentioned, you've got to be specific on which project you had the bribe. Who took the bribe? So just to come and just say a bribe is not good. You have to be specific. Because when it was called the off report, it was specific. Who you going at? Who you looking at? The off report was specific, and within that they call other persons to get at the other person. And I'm saying here is that you read the off report, and in the off report, I think Tobago was mentioned in that report. I don't have it here, but I think Tobago was mentioned in that report. And the off committee came to Tobago and looked at projects in Tobago. The library, the hospital. So, because they were under judicate. So, some forensic took place. But in the report, nothing was said. I don't remember that I accused anybody in the Tobago House of Assembly. On this side, no one was accused for taking a bribe. And you keep using the word cost overrun. And you have to be careful when you say cost overrun. Is it the length of time the project takes and the cost went over? And I'll prove some of that to you. Is it change of scope of work cause additional payment? That is not cost overrun. as additional cost, because as against cost overrun. Cost overrun would be if I am going to build this glass and I stay with the glass as is continuously, I have to give good reason why the costs change. But if I is building a house, if I'm building a house and the house plan say this is it, and then in building the house as it happens, women will get inside and say, I don't want the cupboard here, I want this cupboard, I want this change, I want that change. You have additional work or change of scope, which change the price, additional price costing. Because, you know, I just telling you, I've experienced that now. Because I'm building a house and I've experienced that. The minority dealer will tell you that. He's building a house too. And he will experience that additional cost to his house. But it's not cost overrun. You know, we are men, we are minority, we know this. Because we have a plan we designed in 2004. And the minority will tell you. He will design his house in 2001 and build it now. And the price in 2001 cannot be now. So you find you have this additional cost, changing cost. So just for example, I am showing you that you cannot come here and say cost overrun as against additional cost. So, and you mentioned about monies, and you mentioned about the savings. But I want to tell you, it is now coming out to prove to the people of Tobago all the money that was saved over time, where it went. And as we unfold our stewardship, you will see how we account for all the monies in these mega projects you spoke of. It's going to come out. You spoke about accounting, but this very house has a committee set up to look at the reports. This very house, we would have sent a report to the committee, the same report, Auditor General's report to the committee, and to this day, they have not called one meeting with staff or whoever to discuss the financial report from the Auditor General. It has never happened.
You can twist the truth so far, regardless of how often you twist the truth. But the Deputy Chief Secretary is Mr. in his house, and he knows that. I see the look on your face telling me qualified. The Deputy Chief Secretary knows that the committee have met on a number of occasions up to when, and I can refer to a report written in the past by the Chief Secretary that spoke to the constraints that up to this day have not been dealt with. And that is when he was chairman of the committee way back in 1999. Those constraints have never been addressed.
I found it necessary to qualify this statement before. I did say that the contents of that correspondence to which reference was made have been addressed subsequently, and it is unfair to say that nothing was done about the concerns raised in that correspondence.
So what I was saying is that the House, this Tobago House of Assembly, there's a watchdog, there's a committee to watch over the affairs of the people of Tobago. And that committee, I'm not saying that they failed, but the committee is to operate and to do the work so that the people of Tobago would know that the committee is carrying out its mandate of the Tobago House of Assembly. You spoke of the bribe. When you talk about bribe on projects, there's a process. There's a tender process. Are you saying that you could take a bribe in the tendering to give it to award the tender? Are you saying that NIPDEC take a bribe? NIPDEC is the one who did the tendering process. MTS did it. And the legal committees of the government of Trinidad and Tobago carrying out the job. The tenders board, the central tenders board, the library went through them. And they have the thing you call FIDIC and so on that you use to do your contracts and so on. It's there. So I only bring up these to show you that what you were saying about forensic is that it is not tiny to what you were saying. You're talking about bright disease and you started to talk about the church in Trinidad and what have you. I didn't want to go there, but you asked me to go there. Today, it was said by a member of the PP that the most corruption you can find is in the PP. I didn't say it, but you want to go along that road. I wasn't going there. A strong member of the PP said that. So that was Daga. So let's don't go there, please, because we can prove it too. The church was not anything to do with governance. It's a private matter. But they brought it to try to bring government. So I only wanted to go through a few of your things in the first outcry. And you were pain to mention more mega projects when you started off. Let me help you. 4 community centers completed. John Dial, Glamorgan, Hardyville, and Glenwood. Mega projects. You are saying that they qualify mega projects. We have 4 more mega ones going. Bethesda, Speyside, Betsy Hope, Lowlands, community centers, mega. Completed, mega. 2 large health centers, 1 in Scarborough, 1 in Charlotte, mega. Tobago, mega. Completed. 4 new fish depots. I'm giving you some. And if you want an outside mega that you should always keep close to your heart, 2 fast ferries. All right. So when you're listing in megas, put more that you want to check out.
Minority Leader Ashworth Jack accused the Executive Council of not working with proper plans at the beginning of projects, which he said resulted in changes along the way.
The Secretary stood in this house this afternoon and attempted to say to all of us here, to the nation and indeed to the world, that the way to build a project is not to conceptualize it, not to think it out, but to do something, and somewhere along the line, you now come to the realization that it should be done differently. And therefore, you now spend money somewhere along the line after awarding a contract with specifics. And that is what we got this evening. And I can't believe what I just heard. Madam Presiding Officer, the Secretary took us through the library and all the reasons why the library cost from 19 to 24 and then to 100, and trying to tell us, well, you know, we had to change it, and after we talked to Nallis tell me this, so we changed that. And the question I am asking is, who thought this thing out? Was it thought out any at all? What was the rationale for putting the library in the first place? And after the concept, who did the users brief? Did the user's brief tell you exactly what you wanted? After the user's brief, how did it go out for 10? At what stage did all these so-called changes take place? And what was the rationale for the changes? Because somebody in trying to tell you, you must do it different than what you told us. You said, after speaking with the staff, You agreed that this is what must be done. Then somebody from NALIS, because they're the national, tell you to do it different, and you do it different. And my question is, how can we rationalize that? How? Man, presiding officer, a library, and you come with a picture to show that this is what it's going to look like. Man, presiding, this library started, a contract was awarded on the 24th of May, 2004. Man, presiding officer, I couldn't go back to 2006, where the same secretary, when a motion was brought to this house by me to talk about the delay in infrastructure project, apologize for the delay and say, we're going to deal with it 6 years after. He come to say, it's a good thing it had a delay, so we now we're able to fix it. 6 years. And you tell us on this side that this motion shouldn't come. Taxpayers' money. And I asked in 2006, as I'm asking today, who is to pay for it? And then he finishes by saying to us that, listen, we're going to get this nice thing, and don't go out and tell people that. One presiding officer, what I expected was a candid discussion, speaking about the problems that we have experienced, and therefore what we will do to ensure that nothing like this ever happen again. Yeah. That's what we heard. We heard about the number of piles. You're talking about awarding a contract for specific, a design of a building. And then tell me when the building was being done, you now recognize that the pile structure was bad. That's the foundation. And somebody come to tell me that that is the way you plan, and you should be commended for planning like that. I'm presiding officer. I am flabbergasted. I cannot believe what I just heard. And in order to add to the acting, the pictures came up. The question that's put to us in this motion is, how do we deal with a matter that started here, ended up here, in this intervening period? What went wrong to allow it to go to this? So that we must, and the secretary is talking about additional. And he's talking about variation. In construction, what he's speaking about is variations. And you're telling me that your variations is 4 times the cost of your original project? Someone needs to explain that. You have variation 4 times the cost of the original project on more than 3 projects? You're saying, I am saying that you said it's additional. So if it's additional in construction, it's called variation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying if it's cost overrun or not. And I'm now trying to tell you, somebody needs to qualify for me how a variation or a series of variations could now cost 4 times the cost of the original project.
In his contribution, Councillor Anselm London said the minority's arguments did not contain specifics. He argued that focus should be paid on whether they were getting value for money on the projects.
The member goes to some book somewhere and tries to define mega project. Well, mega project is defined in terms of your ambition and in terms of your pocket. Is it $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion? And it depends on what kind of dollars you're talking about. The member doesn't know. But because of politics, he mistakenly and deliberately, in some sense, seeks to put a spin on the word mega project as if that is something negative where Tobago is concerned. And I'm going to tell you why, Madam President. You can't treat Tobagonians this way. Because when his party or the people that he associates himself with. He'll come back to the PNM in good time. But the people he associates with, when they decided to build a university in Debe in South, in the constituency of your dearly beloved Prime Minister, the Honorable Kamala, what's her name, Prasad Bisesa, not a comment was made about that mega project. It's good for Debe. When you decided, when your government, the government of which you are a part, decided to build the Children's Hospital in Central, not a word about that mega project. But because Tobago decide to think big and make it happen, it becomes a problem. That is not right. Why shouldn't Tobago have the best? What is the problem? What is the problem, Madam Presiding Officer? I, for one, make no apologies for seeking to excel at whatever talent God gives me. The same applies to every single one of us. Whether you want to invest your money in housing or in other endeavors, and you decide to build the best house in Mount St. George or in Hillsborough, that's your business. Go right ahead. By the same token, if Tobago decides to build a first-class financial complex, let it be. And it is unfair, Madam Presiding Officer. It is wrong that we, the people of Tobago, who, if you do your geography right, and you know your international law correctly, we, the people of Tobago, whose contribution to the public purse of Trinidad and Tobago is much more than your miserly 4.03% of what you poorly define as the national bank. You're going to tell me, you're going to tell us, you are going to tell the people of Tobago that we do not deserve a first-class financial complex, a first-class library, a magnificent world-class Shaw Park cultural complex. That's what you're trying to tell me. I'm not going to buy that. But, Madam Presiding Officer, beyond question or definition, what you mean by mega project and all of that. Loose language again, Madam Presiding Officer. You see, when you use words like cost overrun, all you're trying to do is to inflame passions. So I can run out somewhere and people can see you on the television and it looks like London and them wasting money. That's the whole point. But when you come here to debate, we would require a greater degree of specificity and rigor in the kind of analysis that you have made. And my good friend, the Secretary, pointed in that direction. Indeed, Madam Presiding Officer, when you're talking this way, you must not base your remarks on such an important matter. Base them on these unrehearsed or unresearched statements with no financial or analytical basis. You're talking just so. It sounds nice for the public gallery to come and say there have been cost overrun. I mean, the very statement requires analysis. Where you get the analysis from? It sounds nice, so I will say so. It's going to make London and them look bad. I'm saying to you, my good friend, much as you would like to speak to the projects, much as all of us would like to speak to the projects, forget the public gallery. We must be prudent in kinds of remarks that we make, because to suggest that you have had cost overrun, a precondition is that you have done the financial analysis. And I know you have not done so. You could not do so. You have no such information. But you take the easy track, watch the project, rather than commending those who are involved in the project. Aha, it costs too much, it's too good for Tobago. That's a cheap shot. And I feel, Madam Presiding Officer, my good friend knows better, Probably needs a greater guidance from some people on his right, but my good friend, for instance, who spent a lifetime at Inland Revenue, could give you some advice as to how you measure this thing. I cannot speak about people to your further right in these kinds of matters. But I'm just saying to you, if you want to attack us, you are free to do so with evidence. Do not use loose language talking about cost overrun. You have not even defined it. Try as your best. It's a cheap shot without evidence, and I think it is unfair. For instance, Madam Presiding Officer, were there additions to the scope of the projects? You may answer. What is the inflation experienced during the period? Were there provisions for it? Was it a fixed price contract and they changed their mind? What happened? What happened to the issue related to provisional sums when the contract was first brought? Were there in fact overruns? And now we could begin to talk. But to suggest because a project that looked nice for the people of Tobago, that cost some pennies more, yes, some pennies more, run to the talk about cost overrun without asking yourself the fundamental question: are the projects today as you see them, are we getting value for money as a people of Tobago? And we shall invite you, we shall invite all of us in this chamber when the soon to be named financial complex shall be open. And when it's open, and you view what the people of Tobago have given to all of us, you tell me about cost overrun.
You have been watching excerpts from the 44th sitting of the Tobago House of Assembly. I am Avian Parks. Thank you for viewing.